Throughout time and the pages of history books, we have followed the trajectory of many leaders and conquerors who have left their mark on the world. But there is one name that resonates with a particularly strong and clear echo: Alexander the Great. He was not an ordinary man. He was a prodigy of war and strategy, whose feats earned him a place in the pantheon of the immortals. Imagine a young Macedonian, who from the tender age of 14, was already delving into the art of war, and just 4 years later, at an age when many are in the prime of their youth, became a general. And he didn't stop there. At 20, he had already crowned himself as the king of an empire. During his brief but intense reign of 13 years, Alexander not only redrawed the political map of his time but also profoundly transformed the culture of a vast region. His intrepid spirit and vision led him to overthrow the powerful Achaemenid Empire. With each battle won, he sowed the seeds of what would be known as the Hellenistic period, a time of unprecedented cultural exchange that extended from his death in 323 BC until the fall of the last Hellenistic state in 30 BC. This period was a true fusion of worlds. The Mediterranean and the Near East were united under Greek ideals and aesthetics, transforming everything in their path. The legend of Alexander the Great was so powerful that he not only became the hero of countless stories and legends but also was venerated in some circles as an almost divine being, perhaps a reflection of the deep devotion and mystical character he showed throughout his life. His legacy is so omnipresent that it has survived and thrived for over 2,000 years, influencing both Western and Eastern cultures. Historical figures like Julius Caesar and Napoleon Bonaparte drew inspiration from him to build their own empires. Although many people study his life in school, few are aware of a fascinating aspect of his story. His lightning-fast conquest campaign was, according to some accounts, predicted long before his birth. Within the biblical narrative, in the prophetic texts of Daniel, written between 618 and 535 BC, references are found to future empires and leaders. Daniel, we are told, received divine visions about the rise of Greece as a dominant force, displacing the Medo-Persian Empire, and the critical role Alexander would play in this power shift. God, according to the text, revealed these visions to Daniel during a time known as the intertestamental period, a 4-century span of divine silence that extended from the last of the Hebrew prophets, Malachi, until the arrival of Jesus Christ. Alexander, the young king of Macedonia born in 356 BC, was the son of Olympias of Epirus and Philip II of Macedonia. From a young age, he was groomed to rule by his father, who not only provided him with military training but also ensured a top-notch education under the tutelage of Aristotle. Despite being exiled along with his mother due to political disputes and accusations of illegitimacy, Alexander returned following his father's assassination in 336 BC. At just 20 years old, he seized the throne with determination, eliminating any potential rivals. His authority was marked with blood when he took the rebel city of Thebes, massacring and enslaving its inhabitants, a decisive action that demonstrated his iron will. From that point, Alexander embarked on the conquest of the Persian Empire, a vast entity that, although in decline, remained a formidable force and the dominant power of the era. It is in the scriptures of Daniel, specifically in chapter 7, where a prophetic vision is described that anticipates the emergence of Greece as a world empire under the leadership of a figure many associate with Alexander. Approximately 200 years before Alexander embarked on his campaigns, it is said that Daniel saw in dreams 4 beasts symbolizing successive empires. The third, a leopard with 4 wings, is often interpreted as Alexander's swift and expansive kingdom. This biblical account and the story of Alexander the Great intertwine, offering a unique perspective on how his figure was viewed not only in his time but also in religious narratives that endure to our day. In ancient history, where each thread represents the rise and fall of empires and dynasties, there are a series of images that stand out with singular clarity and boldness. These are none other than the prophetic visions described in biblical texts, particularly those recounted by the prophet Daniel. Among these visions, one captures the essence of the military power and strategic ability of one of the greatest conquerors in history, Alexander the Great and his Greek Empire. Daniel, in his role as a visionary, used the metaphor of a fascinating beast to describe the Greek Empire under Alexander's command. It was not an ordinary beast, but one with the speed and ferocity of a leopard, adorned with 4 wings that represented an unparalleled ability to move rapidly across vast territories. This symbolized how Alexander, with astonishing agility, would dominate the known world. This beast also had 4 heads, prophesying the division of his empire among his 4 most trusted generals following his premature death at the age of 32. Alexander, at the head of an army that, although not the most numerous, was impressively powerful and disciplined, set out to conquer the Persian Empire, the giant of its time. With about 30,000 infantrymen and 5,000 horsemen, most of them veterans of the campaigns of his father, Philip II of Macedonia, the inventor of the Macedonian phalanx, a military formation that Alexander would perfect into an almost invincible war tool. Alexander's first victory was forged on the banks of the Granicus River in 334 BC, where his army achieved a decisive victory against the forces of Darius III of Persia. Following this triumph, in 333 BC, Alexander faced and defeated Darius again at the Battle of Issus. This victory was not only strategically vital, cutting off Persian access to the most lucrative provinces of Egypt and Asia Minor, but also symbolic, as for the first time a Persian army commanded by its king was defeated in battle, crumbling the morale of Persia. Then, at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC, Alexander and his 47,000 soldiers faced a Persian army of 250,000 men. Against all odds, and demonstrating his tactical genius, Alexander achieved a crushing victory, which marked the beginning of the end for the Persian Empire. Gaugamela is still studied today as a masterful example of military tactics. After the battle, Darius fled and was assassinated, not by the enemy, but by those who were once his allies. These events, crucial in the history of antiquity, were not surprising to those who believed in the prophecies of Daniel. In chapter 8 of his book, Daniel describes a vision of the ram and the goat that symbolized the clash between Persia and Greece. The ram, strong but without the agility of the goat representing Greece under Alexander, was the prey destined to be overcome. With the force of an unstoppable wind, Alexander and his Greek Empire would sweep away the Persian Empire, just as it had been predicted. Through these narratives, we not only observe the fulfillment of ancient prophecies but also the confirmation of Alexander the Great as a figure whose life and achievements are intertwined with faith and history. His legacy goes beyond battles and conquered territories. It is a story of how determination, ingenuity, and for some, divine destiny, can elevate a man to dominate his known world, even when his time on earth was astonishingly brief. Let's delve deeper into the account found in the book of Daniel chapter 8, starting from verse 4 and extending beyond, to unfold a detailed and understandable version of this passage. Daniel chapter 8 immerses us in a prophetic vision full of symbolism and images of powerful nations. Here, Daniel tells us, "I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no animals could stand before him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great." Daniel 8:4. Imagine an imposing ram, representing a powerful kingdom that recognizes no rival. This symbolic animal butts westward, northward, and southward, subduing all in its path. Its power is such that no other living being can confront it or even evade its iron grip. In its will to expand, it becomes larger and larger, its influence extending without visible limits. As Daniel ponders this panorama, the vision takes an unexpected turn, and as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Daniel 8:5. A he-goat emerges with extraordinary characteristics. From the west, this supernatural being moves at impressive speed, as if levitating above the world, a sign of rapid and overwhelming conquest. The notable horn between its eyes indicates strong and centralized leadership, and as Daniel reveals to us, this horn represents a historic conqueror, Alexander the Great, whose empire expanded with a speed comparable to that of the animal in the vision. The confrontation is imminent, and the goat came close to the ram with the two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Daniel 8:6-7. The goat, with a fury denoting the strength of a great nation, charges against the ram, breaking its two horns, leaving it powerless and humiliated. The victory is so decisive that no one can rescue the ram, whose dominion comes to a crushing end. Finally, Daniel observes the fate of the goat, and the goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. Daniel 8:8. This verse reflects the historical reality of Alexander's premature death and the division of his empire among his generals, symbolized by the four horns emerging in the cardinal directions. The fall of the Great Horn marks the end of an era and the beginning of another, just as the Macedonian Empire gave way to the Hellenistic kingdoms that arose after Alexander's death. This biblical passage, full of metaphors and allegories, reveals not only Daniel's understanding of the events of his time and those to come, but also offers a window into the interpretation of history through the lens of faith. Daniel's words and the narrative of his vision connect us with the message that earthly empires, no matter how powerful, have a cycle of rise and fall, marked by the hand of divine providence. Navigating the pages of history with a gaze that intertwines faith and prophetic revelation, we observe the figure of Alexander the Great, a character whose life seems to confirm the accuracy with which biblical prophecies have been fulfilled, magnifying the greatness of their divine source, Jehovah God. Through this lens, we see that all those aspiring to success in their endeavors can find in God's Word an infallible guide, a beacon that knows no failure, and whose fulfillment is beyond chance or coincidence. Alexander the Great's trajectory is a testament to the fulfillment of prophecies and the power of God. Alexander, a world leader, and perhaps the most outstanding military strategist to have walked the earth, met an abrupt end on his path, a somber reminder that despite our abilities or achievements, our existence is inextricably in divine hands. It is said that Alexander, facing the nearness of death, expressed 3 last wishes to his companions and generals regarding how he wished his farewell to be. Alexander's first wish was that his coffin be carried by the most distinguished doctors to his final resting place. His second wish was that the riches he had accumulated, gold, silver, precious stones, and jewels, be scattered along the path to his tomb. And the third wish was that his hands remain outside his tomb, visible to all. Faced with such unusual requests, his generals could only inquire the reason, to which Alexander responded, he wished for the doctors to carry his coffin to demonstrate that even the best among them are powerless against death. He wanted his riches to cover the path to his tomb as proof that the material goods accumulated here are left behind when dying, and he longed for his uncovered hands to show that we arrive and depart from this world with them empty, a powerful symbol of our fundamental equality in the cycle of life. These wishes reflect a profound understanding of the vanity of riches and power, as well as the inevitable fate shared by all human beings, regardless of their status. Death, the great equalizer, makes no distinctions, and in its face, all human pretensions of immortality fade away. Continuing with the story and prophecies, after the Battle of Issus, instead of pursuing the Persian king Darius, Alexander turned his attention to the city of Tyre. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had previously ravaged continental Tyre after a siege of 13 years, fulfilling Jehovah's will to punish the city for its arrogance. The insular city of Tyre, proud and unrepentant, was destined to face a similar fate as prophesied by Zechariah. Behold, the Lord will impoverish her and smite her power in the sea, and she shall be devoured by fire. Zechariah 9:4. Alexander the Great, in response to Tyre's refusal to allow him entry, built a causeway across the sea to assault the island city, an astonishing feat of engineering and a tangible example of how prophetic words manifested in history. Alexander's conquest of Tyre was brutal and definitive. Thousands of Tyrians perished, and many more were sold into slavery, thus fulfilling the prophetic word. Tradition holds that after this victory, Alexander visited Jerusalem and was shown the prophecies of Daniel, possibly reinforcing the conception that his role in history was divinely orchestrated. This account of Alexander the Great not only exemplifies the transience of human power and the vanity of wealth, but also serves as a reminder that human history can be viewed through the lens of biblical prophecy, where each event serves a greater purpose in the divine plan. We can try to imagine the profound emotion and admiration Alexander the Great must have felt when hearing promises that were not only clear and detailed but also incredibly favorable to his plans and ambitions. An anecdote recounts that before leaving Jerusalem, Alexander gathered the Jews and offered to grant them any request they had, thus demonstrating his benevolence or perhaps his gratitude for the prophetic interpretations he had heard. Alexander the Great's influence extended far beyond territorial conquests. It permeated biblical and cultural history as well. During the Hellenistic period, the translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek, known as the Septuagint, was a significant event. This monumental translation project was carried out in the 1st century BC, motivated by the need to make the Jewish scriptures accessible to the Greek-speaking Jews of the diaspora, a language established as the common tongue of the Mediterranean and Near East thanks to Alexander's conquests. Legend has it that 70 Jewish scholars congregated on the island of Rhodes, and after 70 days of intense labor, each emerged with a version of the sacred texts in Greek remarkably identical to their colleagues. The Septuagint, beyond being a monumental translation effort, became a crucial tool for understanding and studying the scriptures among Hellenized Jews and early Christians. To this day, it remains the standard version of the scriptures in the Orthodox Church and continues to be a vital testament to the culture and history of both ancient Greece and Greek-speaking Jews. Additionally, the universality of Greek as the common language in the post-Alexandrian world facilitated the drafting of the New Testament writings in that language, aiding the spread of Christianity throughout the Mediterranean. The life and feats of Alexander the Great serve, from this perspective, as an example of how God directs human history, confirming the belief that He is the one who changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Daniel 2:21. Reflecting on the uncertainty of life and the vanity of human planning without recognition of divine providence, the Epistle of James warns us, "Come now, you who say, 'Today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit,' yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring." What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. James 4:13-14. This passage reminds us of the ephemeral nature of our existence and the importance of recognizing that our lives and plans are subject to divine will. With these reflections, we come to the end of this analysis, hoping it has been a great blessing and spiritual enrichment for you. I send warm greetings to all, with the best wishes that God blesses you abundantly. With this, I bid farewell, but not without reminding you that if God wills, we will continue sharing and learning together in future encounters. Until next time, and may God bless you.